Mitsubishi Heavy Industries MU-2, the seventh aircraft in the famous Flyer series, is finally available after an anticipating wait. 704 MU-2s were produced in its production history, and the model iniBuilds produced for Flight Simulator, I would say, knocked it straight out of the park. This unique-bodied twin-turboprop aircraft was developed and put into production in 1963 and ended in '86. Designers at Mitsubishi came from a clean slate in terms of design and were going for an airframe capable of success in a variety of roles, civilian and military. The result was a harmonious marriage of cutting-edge turboprop power attached to one of the coolest-looking flying bodies in general aviation. It got its name due to it being the second iteration of the Mitsubishi utility design. The twin-engine machine, making over 1,500 horsepower, is capable of a range of 1,450 miles and a service ceiling of about 29,000 feet. The optimal climb rate is at around 2,360 feet per minute, and it cruises at around 300 miles per hour. With the modest need for a runway at 2,170 feet to land, and less to get back up into the air, it's safe to say I'll be trying this thing out on short runway hops in the days to come. Inside the cabin and into the cockpit, we will be able to utilize a modern version as well as a classic version. The classic version has a weather radar combined with the old-fashioned radio panel with 3 comm frequencies and nav radios, along with our standard transponder knobs. And the modern version uses the familiar Garmin audio panel, transponder, and navigation unit. Our EFB, which is this mounted smartphone to the left, gives us access to the VFR map and the configuration of the cabin, passenger, or cargo, as well as a weather report for the airports in your flight plan. Regarding the rest of the cockpit, it's just a matter of getting familiar with the startup procedure and flow, which actually reminds me of the OV-10 Bronco. After a couple times, startup in the MU2 is not too daunting, especially if you just follow the quick reference card provided to us by iniBuilds. I'll leave a link for it down below. Outside of setting the prop levers to emergency stop, cockpit preparation is already complete from spawning in. For engine start, we'll head down to the battery key, which I found interesting, because I'm just used to the mag switch being a key, and the battery buttons being separate. Are there any MU2 experts here? Next, make sure the parking brake is set, of course, and head up to the lights to turn on our beacon light. We'll set the left prop lever now to taxi, and our throttle lever should be at start. The left gearing switch now needs to be at ground, and then we enrich the fuel and switch to crank. Let's press the starter switch. So now, we just need to monitor our oil pressure, and when we get above 40 psi, we'll head down and switch our main fuel tank switch on. Once we get the prop rotating, switch our left-hand generator on and then our inverter. Alright, let's get number 2 started. And make sure not to forget to switch that right-hand generator on at the end of number 2 startup. After engine startup is just monitoring our pressures and temperatures, and the gearing switches should have automatically been switched to safe. Alright, so starting our taxi over to the active at Naha Airport in Okinawa, Japan. We'll be taking off and heading due west to the small airstrip on the island of Kerama. Before landing, I'll also initiate a couple stalls to test its performance, as well as seeing if the MU2 will spin. Alright, so our before takeoff checklist: strobe light, nav lights, and landing lights. Go up here and check those out. Strobe and nav, we'll switch those on. Landing and taxi are already on. DI switches aren't going to be required, and we'll go ahead and set our trim 2 degrees up, and flaps set to 20. parking brake is set, flaps set to 20, and we're gonna also make sure that our prop levers are set to take off and land. Takeoff checklist is complete. Ready to go. Airspeed's alive, we'll rotate at 150 knots. Gear up, flaps up. Yeah, 150 knots for our rotation speed I thought was a little fast, but considering the wingspan being so short, it makes sense. And we'll go ahead and make our left turn and head towards Kiruma. And to not overstress the engines, we're going to be keeping our torque pressure between 45 and 50 psi. So for this short flight, I am flying the entire duration manually, but for longer flights, your autopilot is going to be at this quadrant down below, where you have 6 buttons for engaging the autopilot, setting your heading, your ground speed, your altitude, or capturing ILSs or tracking your flight paths in flight plans. And like I mentioned earlier, before we head in for our approach at Kiruma, I want to definitely see how this thing performs in a stall. So we're going to go ahead and power off the throttles and enter a steep climb. Let's pitch up to 20 degrees. I see. Okay, we're already nosing down. I didn't do anything to the trims, so aerodynamically that doesn't really let you stall. Airspeed's climbing back up, and wasn't really it. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and trim it up and really aggressively get that nose up in the air and see if it enters a legitimate stall. Power on, nose up. Oh yeah, we're vertical. Okay, maybe I pulled up a little bit too hard. Let's see what happens now. Okay, we're falling backwards. Wow, that was quite stable for a stall because the left or right wing didn't drop, so you know, that's why I'm testing out this stall performance of the MU2 to see if it's going to spin or not, or get me into something unrecoverable. But that was pretty impressive. There's the airport right down there below. Alright, let's try one more thing here. We're going to go ahead and get into a left bank. Let's keep it at 30 degrees, airspeed's low. Let's set our flaps down to 20, landing configuration. But we'll just keep the gear up. And pretend that we got a little bit slow on our base turn. Let's see what happens there. Stall horn, throttle up, pull up at the same time. Wow. Okay, this thing is spin-proof, really. I'm impressed. So we've got a little bit of a crosswind coming in from the right side. Flaps set to 40, landing gear down. And we'll try to get on the ground at around 100 knots. It looks like 100 is not even necessary. Got a little bit of a headwind here. Nice. Reverse thrusters. Easy work. Well, that's it for my thoughts on this wonderful airplane. What have you guys found out about it? And do you think it's worth $15? I think so. These videos are getting better and are more fun every time I make them, and your exceptional feedback so far is only a sign that I should keep on doing it. I'll see you all in the next one.